question for all of you. And I'd love if you could drop me a yes in the chat if any of what I'm about to share sounds at all familiar to you. So have you ever dreaded, like to your core in your soul dreaded, having to talk to a boss or a supervisor? Or if you're a founder, have you ever dreaded having to talk to a difficult client that acted as if they were your boss or your supervisor? Let me know in the chat. Also curious, and we got a couple of yeses. Yes, and yes from, I mean, I'm both happy to see the interaction and also very depressed at the response, and this is the reality in which we find ourselves. Let me give you another one. Have you ever had a boss or a manager who is constantly changing things up on you, or seemingly is completely incapable of letting you know and communicating when there are big updates or changes that directly impact your day-to-day? They just can't seem to get it together and let you know. Has that ever happened to anyone? Let me know in the chat. Oh, I got a big yup from once again. Okay, two more here. Have you ever had a boss or supervisor who seemingly just doesn't see you, doesn't understand you, can't give you the time of day, and yet you notice that when everybody else is around, maybe namely like the men, suddenly there's all this time to talk to them and support them and give them all the opportunities? How about that one? 100% from yes from okay, final one. Have you ever had a boss or a supervisor or like a big client that you've actually had a great relationship with, and still you weren't getting what you needed from them in order to be able to excel in your job or get the project done, get a good result? Has that ever happened to anyone? Looks like it has. Yes. Currently. Yes. All right, listen. So I know, and this is fabulous. Keep it going in the chat. I love the energy. I know that dealing with some of these difficult bosses and managers, some of these difficult clients is absolutely not our favorite thing to do, right? Because it wastes your time. It keeps you from doing your actual job. It's so unnecessary on some level. But managing up, i.e. building a healthy, workable relationship with your boss or a difficult client, is crucial for you getting to your career and your leadership goals, especially because we're women. And we live in a world in which, as amazing as we are, as talented as we are, as incredible as we are, we're not given the same privileges and access to resources and knowledge that the men get. Usually straight white men of a particular socioeconomic class. This is the reality, and especially in the fields that we're in: media, comms, tech, academia, healthcare. All of the places in which we work, they are infused with old boys club culture, with white supremacy culture, and this is what we have to deal with every day. So if you don't know how, or if you're unable to advocate for yourself with your boss or your supervisor with these difficult clients, you're not going to get that big opportunities that you need and deserve. You're going to be overlooked, and you're definitely not going to get promoted or paid right. And so this is why I'm here, right? And I heard that specifically managing up was a topic that was requested. And I'm very excited because we're going to talk today about how you are going to make it work with these folks if and when you encounter them, including some folks who are currently dealing with them. And it all starts with you. You are the CEO of your career. And so this is where we are going to have our launching point for this evening. And we're going to get right to it. I'm definitely a big goals person, goals-oriented person. So I want you to take out a piece of paper or write down on your phone or anywhere that you can write down. Take a minute. I'm going to give you a minute to think about what your top 3 career goals are right now. Write them down. And as you think about this, I want you to dream big and also be specific. So I'll give you a minute, and as folks finish, you can put them in the chat, and let's keep stuff confidential among us this evening. So if anyone's ready, feel free to start sharing in the chat, and we can see what our top 3 career goals are. Give like 10 or 15 more seconds for folks who are finishing up. Okay, so let's hear a few. It's okay if you're not finished, if you only have 1 or 2, or if it's still in process, totally get it. This is great. Number 1, switch to working in an immigration-focused nonprofit. Awesome, love it. 2, be a CMO. Love the specificity there too. 3, be a spokesperson more often. Yes, rather than always preparing. I love that one, and also personally resonates with me because I always used to feel like I was a behind-the-scenes person and I never wanted to be in the spotlight. And my former therapist, to her credit, was like, but what if you were in the spotlight? And I resisted her for years, but it's one of those things where I think more of us, hashtag representation matters, and more of us do need to be. So thank you. Become a director, manage someone, start a podcast for my brand. I love that too. And feels actually on parallel tracks with what is saying too. So keep putting your career goals in the chat and we can see a couple more. But the reason I'm asking you these, as you may be wondering, is because once you know what your goals actually are, then that will tell you what it is that you need from your boss or your supervisor. These might be, to give you a couple examples, things like their attention. You know, if you said yes to that example at the beginning, I was like, you can't get them to see you or hear you or give you the time of day. Maybe all you need to begin with is their actual time and attention. Maybe it's better communication or communication at all. Maybe it's more training, advocacy and sponsorship, their trust, or it could be something else entirely. But your boss or your supervisor or these big clients that you may be working with, they can and should absolutely be your active partner in helping you get to these big goals. Now it's time to make a plan. And oh, you're quite welcome. So actually, somebody give me the name of a boss. Doesn't have to be your boss. Give me the name of a boss that we can use for this example. And we'll see. Let me tell you this story. Fred, perfect. Okay, so it's time to make a plan to make sure that Fred actually treats you like a priority for them. So we have to make you a priority for Fred. How do we do this? And also, I'm curious, like, if folks are you working from home right now? Are you working remotely? Are you in a hybrid situation? Are you back in the office? Give me a sense of work from home. Okay, let me know if anyone is in there in the actual. Oh, great. Lots of folks work from home, hybrid. Hopefully that's working for you all. Great. If I'm saying your name correctly, it's in the office. Okay, so we got a mix. So your plan is to get what you need from Fred, and that is absolutely going to require you having in real time, face-to-face time with them. Why? Because it's all too easy to ignore an email, a text, a DM, a Slack message, all of these other asynchronous ways of communicating. Very convenient, but also very easy for Fred to snooze, to ignore, to, you know, leave you on scene. And that's not happening anymore, starting today. So how do you make yourself a priority for Fred and get Fred's attention? You're going to set up regular standing check-in meetings, which if you're in the office, like, or if you're hybrid or work from home, it can be virtual through Zoom. Doesn't matter, just has to be synchronous, in real time, face-to-face. This sounds simple and basic, and it is, and also sometimes it's the hardest thing in the world. So the point of this is because if you can't get Fred's attention for at least 20, 30 minutes at a time on a regular basis, you're never going to become a priority for him. You're never going to become like, get Fred to be invested in your actual success. And that's crucial to this managing up. Okay, so we got to make sure we got enough of Fred's time for you. So you're going to set up these check-in meetings regularly, somewhere between weekly and monthly is what I usually recommend. For a lot of my clients, it's like every other week is a good cadence. Depends on, you know, your kind of situation. So I'll defer to your judgment on that, but that's sort of the range of frequency that we're usually talking. And so, yeah, somebody give me the name of like an employer or a company. Doesn't have to be your employer or a company, but we can take some company name, and then I'm going to walk you through the next part of this. GE. Thank you. Okay, so let's say you're at GE, you've been there for 4 years now. It's one of those weeks where it's Tuesday morning and you feel like, oh my God, how is it not already Friday? It's just been one of those weeks. I don't know if anyone has ever had those. But you know what? You're at work, you showed up, you're crushing it at the job. Your productivity has been through the roof for the past months and these past 4 years, really. You're doing amazing. And yet, Fred has not been giving you what you need in order to excel, to get to that next level, that promotion, that raise, that bigger opportunity to have more responsibility. He's gatekeeping. He's not giving it to you. But you've been to this talk and you know what you have to do. So it's time. It's time for you to set up that recurring standing meeting with Fred. And I know you do not want to meet with Fred because guess what? Fred has ignored you before. Your performance review with Fred last year was pretty difficult. All the things that you asked for, all the arguments that you made, it was like it was landing on deaf ears. You didn't get the raise, you didn't get the promotion. Instead, he gave it to the mediocre white guy that just started 2 months ago. And deep breaths. I am still going to need you to feel and process any resentment or any kind of negative feelings that you might have and put them to the side because I still need you to get that first meeting on the books with Fred. Here's how. This part, and feel free to screenshot this if it's helpful to you. I'm going to give you some sample scripts. Obviously, they're samples for you to tweak and put in your own words and put your own magic on them. But this you can do either in a text, email, phone, Zoom, or in person, whichever you prefer. This part doesn't actually matter. So you go up to Fred. Hey, Fred, how's it going? How's your week been? Listen to actually understand rather than listening to respond. And then you can reply. You can do some banter, pleasantries, all that. Break the ice. Then you get to the point. So I've been thinking about how I can be a better asset to you and GE. Could we set up a meeting for next week to talk about how I can better support you and the team? All right, short and sweet, try to get that meeting. If you get pushback and Fred's like, oh, you can just email me updates. You're doing great. No feedback, no notes from me. You're doing awesome, whatever, that kind of like useless vapid stuff. You could say something like, oh, I had some ideas that I wanted to discuss with you in real time. If next week's too packed, I could also do the following Monday or whatever it is. So hopefully if you use some version of this 1 or 2 scripts, you can actually set up the meeting and get it on the books. Okay, so if you, and it says every week, I'm not sure exactly what that's in response to, but let me know in the chat and I can get back to that. So let's say you've used these scripts and you've got that meeting with Fred on the calendar. Great, yay, that's the first victory. And I know you might still be kind of like dreading having to go into this meeting and all that. That's okay, maybe you're feeling a bit vulnerable or nervous, totally normal. Feel your feelings. And also know that I'm going to help you out by giving you step 2 of this method. It's an awesome, very simple, but very effective 3-part agenda. Okay, this is what you are going to do. And I got this from the former VP of Transformation at the New York Times, which was a role that Erin created for herself, needed for them to create her. Specifically, and you know, you all are in media, so you know how not necessarily politically conservative, but like kind of just conservative in general in a neutral way organizations like the New York Times can be. So I thought it was pretty impressive that she was able to make this happen for herself using this method. So I'm going to share it with you now. The first thing is during your standing recurring meeting with Fred, you're going to start with the past. This is what I've been doing. This is how well I've been doing. Here's my receipts. Like, let me get you up to speed. Pretty basic. Now, then you've gotten Fred up to the present. You're going to talk about where you are right now. Now, this is what I'm interested, or these are the questions I'm looking at. This is what I'm passionate about doing now. Since you've got Fred from the past into the present, now you can look together to the future and you're going to say, here's how I want to grow or contribute. This is where I want to go next, type of thing. What should I do to get there? What do you think? How do you think I should approach this? Who else should I talk to? You're going to ask all these open-ended questions. And like, if there are journalism folks in here, you know, put that hat on. You're going to be so great at this part. And ask these open-ended questions. And this is the part where you are really getting Fred's advice and thereby getting Fred actually invested in your success. Because when someone is like, you know, giving you advice and you're reporting back on it week to week to week on your progress, they're going to feel this personal investment in you moving towards your goals and you succeeding. Okay, so this is the skeleton of the structure that you use, past, present, future. And let's say, we're going to come back to this in a second, but let's say you've had this amazing meeting for 20, 30 minutes, whatever it is. Tell me, what is the one thing that you must do before you end this meeting, whether you're leaving the Zoom or whether you're walking out of the office? What's the one thing you have to do before you go? Oh, and thanks for filling me in. I forgot what prompt that was. Thank him for his time, make a plan for next steps. Exactly, confirm the next step. Perfect, set up the next meeting. That was exactly what I was looking for, and everyone, the other we're also getting to it, I think. You're going to nail down the next meeting because we're not going to let Fred like squirm away and make this a one and done, because it's never a one and done. This is a long-term strategy. So here's another script. Feel free to screenshot it if you like to get that next thing on the calendar. So this was really great, Fred. I really appreciate your time and advice. You know, feel free to say a few specifics so that Fred knows that you heard him. You know, feel free to repeat back the actual words that Fred said, because that also helps you build empathy and rapport with Fred. I want to get started on all these things. Can I report back to you in 2 weeks, same day, same time? Or if you prefer, can I check back in with you in 2 weeks, same day, same time? Can make it super chill, no big deal. Just get this going, you know, not hard. We already got a date and time. Let's just meet back here again. So hopefully this is going to get you that next meeting. And then from here, it's fairly simple, everyone. You're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to schedule the next meeting after, you know, probably like the third one or so. You can probably, and feel it out, but you can probably get to the point where it's just like a standing recurring meeting that you just send a Google invite or whatever it is, and it repeats every week or every 2 weeks. And then you don't even have to do the scheduling piece anymore because there's simply an understanding. That's the ideal, but you can work up to that. It's okay. And you're going to use that same past, present, future agenda to walk Fred through each time. And the reason I'm making you do it the same way every time or whatever in terms of the structure is not necessarily be pedantic, but you are training Fred how to work with you. So it's easier if you give people kind of this set structure, they know what to expect from you. And then, you know, the details in between in each of those 3 categories will be different every time, of course, but it helps just psychologically ease Fred into this new process. Okay, so let me know if there's any questions or thoughts or anything in the chat, and I'm going to tell you the next thing. Which is that getting Fred fully aware of everything that you're doing through that past, present, and future thing, past, present, and future, is going to make sure that, number one, he knows what you're doing. Number 2, he's seeing the consistent impact and results that you're getting, the consistent progress. So that's just going to become very clear to Fred over time. And you're, again, making him invested in your success. And lastly, we're demonstrating leadership, discipline, and grit by doing this, because Fred's going to know most people don't do this. It's a very easy and simple, and like you could Google around and find these type of methods, but most people don't do it because I don't know, it's very hard to be consistent and accountable and keep doing this, especially if Fred's not exactly a huge ally of yours from the beginning. So you're setting yourself apart from everybody else, which is also helpful, especially for those of you who want to like build your leadership, build a brand, get that directorship, all that stuff. Okay, so in a minute, we are going to actually practice doing the past, present, future method in pairs and breakout rooms. But before we do, I want to give you a couple of more practical tips. So you're going to be disciplined and be clear and consistent with your messaging. No backpedaling. So none of this, can we check back in 2 weeks? oh wait, you're probably super busy. I know, I'm sorry. I'll just email you the updates. None of that backpedaling. Instead, something more like, can we check back next week? Oh, that week's full. Okay, what about the following Wednesday? Oh, that's not good. What about, Friday between these two meetings that I know that you have? Keeping it assertive. You're not backing down, you're not collapsing. Number 2, don't ask for feedback, ask for advice. So a lot of times I talk to clients and others, and we talk about feedback a lot. I try to urge folks not to say that actual word, because it just tends to get people thinking very in the box, very performance review, annual review, HR type of mentality. And that's too surface level for us. We want to know, what does Fred actually think? How does Fred actually feel about this? What does Fred truly care about? And so when you ask and solicit other people's advice, then that gives you clues into how their brain actually works and how they tick. And that's really the key to managing up. You got to know thyself, and you also have to know the other person. So ask for advice in the way that I laid out before. Like, what do you think about this? How do you think I should approach it? What are the next steps? Stuff like that. Those how and what questions. 3, subtly emphasize the benefit or benefits to others. So you may have noticed that at the very beginning, when we asked for the first meeting, I was like, I want to talk to you about how I can be a better asset to GE and the team. So some of you might have picked up and been like, oh, that's kind of annoying, because I want to talk about me and my own professional development. This doesn't have to do with like supporting. And as women, it's kind of like eye-rolly to have to position ourselves that way. Perhaps that's how you felt. It was actually intentional. So there's not a ton of intersectional research on negotiation and what happens at the negotiation table for women and different groups of women of color. But there is this one study, and I'm going to put it in the chat in a minute for you, so you can like nerd out and read it if you want. But as women, we're expected, and the stereotype bias against us is that we are communal. So that we're team oriented, we're always putting other people before ourselves, and that's like the right way that we should be. Using a lot of air quotes, because obviously it's a stereotype, and I don't actually like condone it or subscribe to that. However, a lot of people do. So I don't have a problem with you strategically and intentionally playing into a stereotype bias to subvert it to get what it is that you need. A means to an end, in other words. So if it helps, if you are dealing with folks where you feel like this is kind of how they think of you, regardless, then talk about how whatever it is that you want, wherever it is you want to go, that let me pick another goal, like becoming a spokesperson more, like flip that into how that's a benefit for GE and the team and the mission, something like that. You can always frame it in this collective sense. And then people are often, sometimes more open to it. So try, experiment, and see if it makes a difference. The last one here is, these are all, of course, kind of like templates, default things that you can try, and they're a starting point. So if anything feels like it's not going to work in your workplace, that it's going to backfire against you, tweak it and make it work for you. You're the expert on you. You're the expert on the situation that you're in. So defer to your own intuition and gut feeling, and experiment and troubleshoot a bit. This is some creative problem solving for you to do too. Okay, one more thing. I want to loop back to this, which I shared before, what you need from your boss. So as you do these recurring standing check-in meetings and you're doing past, present, future, you're going to weave in these things that you need from your boss, because the attention and the communication is built in. You are getting their time and attention by having the meetings. You are inherently going to be strengthening your communication with them by having these meetings, as well as building more trust. But if it's more training that you want, the advocacy and sponsorship, you can start to weave these things actually into the conversation of the present and the future.